Hello and welcome to A Journey to Awareness. Are you ready to take a voyage to the uncharted places within you, where you will be guided to ways to heal your wounds, look at your life choices, release your fears, and take control of your future? Stick with me through these podcasts and you will take the most exciting adventure of your life, the journey to you. Let's go. Hello, I'm Shauna Hoffman. So I asked a few listeners about what we should attack on the journey to awareness this week, and one listener said, healthy communication. Okay, that wasn't exactly what she said. She said, can you do a whole podcast telling my partner what they're doing wrong when they fight with me? And then a few other expletives after that. I said, sure, but you may not like what I say. Because fights take two people. So whether you're listening to this podcast and wondering how to have a really good, healthy fight with a partner, a parent, sibling, or friend, I now welcome you to the Art of Fighting 101, otherwise known as you may have to get past your anger, check yourself, and just listen. Fact, most people enter into an argument with their own agenda. I want you to hear my side, agree with me, and admit that you're wrong. Often what accompanies that is a world of bullying, yelling, and replays of the past. So the first rule of engagement I offer you is to really listen to the other person, then acknowledge that you hear what was said. What, Shauna? Acknowledge them? No way. That would give them the advantage in the fight. I can't do that. You can and you should. The true goal of an argument is to work out an issue or fix the problem. Whether you're fighting over money, how to raise the kids, someone hurting someone else's feelings, being dissed by a friend, it doesn't matter. You both have a right to speak your truth and to be heard. Listening's not an easy thing to do. It takes a level of willingness to step back, breathe, and hear what the other person is saying. But if you truly care about this person and want the relationship to grow, then you can use that as your incentive to let the ego go and listen. Now, listening does not mean that you agree with them. Listening means that you respect the other person enough to at least hear what they have to say. After all, don't you want the same respect? Respect. If you are in any kind of relationship where you have lost respect for the other person, then all of what I say today may be for naught. It then goes back to the self-awareness to know whether this is a relationship you want to keep or not. So listen through this episode and see if you find any guidance to see where your heart is there. Now let's talk about competition. Oh, so many couples and friends are in this weird competition with the other one, where they have to win. They think winning makes them better than the other person. Even if they know they're wrong in a fight, they'll argue and push until the other person just folds, and then they win. My husband and I are both Leos. That was us to a T. I'm right, you're wrong. Oh no, I'm right and you're wrong. So the fight would escalate until finally one of us just screamed and gave up. And though the one still standing felt like they won, they didn't. In truth, no one won. Then one day, when we were in the midst of a fight, I had a quick moment of self-awareness. I realized that I actually knew he was right and I was wrong. But there was no way I was going to give in. What the hell? So I walked out of the room for a bit to think about this. And then I came back in and said, you are right. I am wrong and I'm sorry. Oh my God, the look on his face was hysterical. I mean, he really didn't know what to do with that statement. The good news was he was gracious enough to not rub it into me that I was wrong. He just said, thank you, and that was it. Fight over. Even the person who admits that they're wrong has a level of power in a fight. They have the power to stop the fight. And for those people whose fights last for days, you know that this is a very powerful position to be in. But most importantly, when you can take a moment to reflect on yourself, your reason for the fight, the things you really want to achieve, you give yourself the power to look within and see if there's a part of you that needs to change, or an opinion that can be seen from a different angle, or a wrong that you've done someone that in your heart you want to heal. Let me clarify that it takes both people to be on a journey to self-awareness for arguments to have a chance in hell of being productive. And let me say that if you are fighting with an abuser, all of the tools that I may give you now may not work. An abuser has no desire for self-awareness. So if you are with an abuser, please, and I mean please, reach out for help. Okay. Let's take a look at a piece of self-awareness that I'm going to go into depth about in another episode, but one that has a huge effect on our fighting style, and that is our defense mechanisms. Remember, defense mechanisms are what we use to defend ourselves against harm. And needless to say, when you're fighting with someone, these defense mechanisms are what you turn to in order to feel safe. I'll go into depth about these in another podcast, but for now I'm going to talk about a few that I want you to think through and see if any of them are your go-to when you're in a fight. The first is silence. I will not fight back or give my opinion because I feel safer not engaging. This is also one that comes from feeling that you don't have a right to your opinion. Maybe you learned in your family that it was best to just keep quiet or that your opinion doesn't matter. I guarantee you, if you keep silent for too long, it will eventually explode in probably one of the biggest fights you finally are willing to take on. Then there are those that use silence as a tool to control the other person. If I'm quiet and don't answer them, it's actually sending a message that I don't really care about their feelings or opinions, and I'm not going to join this conversation. It's one of the most manipulative kinds of defense mechanisms, and one that leaves the other person made to feel like they and their needs don't exist. Silence is such an interesting one. It can go both ways, either making you feel powerless or powerful. Both ways, they are the way you defend yourself, and both ways will not help you have healthy discourse with anyone in your life. Both feed right into denial that there's a problem to be worked out. Here's another: bullying. Oh, bullying can take many forms. It can be abusive language or name-calling, but it can also be a barreling your thoughts through without letting the other person speak or be heard. Like a bull in a china shop. It's a way that so many couples fight. They think if they rant long enough at the other person, then the other person will just give up the fight. And they do, just to save their sanity. The frustration that happens when you try to be heard with this kind of person is exhausting. Sadly, many couples I know have come to this exchange, and all opportunities to feel validated in a relationship are gone. Here's another one: logic. Oh, I love this one. Logic is one of the most important tools for a healthy argument, but it can also be one that sends a message that I have no intention to hear that I hurt you, or that you are hurting, or that you were scared or angry, or. I'd much prefer to let you know that you are being way too emotional and not logical, and you need to change that. So here's the thing. In most fights, the most important thing for each person to feel is heard and validated, not just for their beliefs, but for their feelings. When you're in an argument with someone who uses logic on you without validating your feelings, it just digs the wound deeper. The other side of the logic coin is for yourself. The best, and I mean the very best way for you to come to any results in most fights is to try to use logic and self-awareness to check in with yourself. If you can really look at an argument logically, you can see the facts, and you can also see your motivation behind your side of it. That's how you use self-awareness. You're aware of your true motivations in any fight. Do I just want to win this fight? Or is there something that I really need to get them to agree on? Or is there a hurt that I really need them to acknowledge? There's so many defense mechanisms that come into play in an argument. Way too many to address, especially when I want to give you some good fighting rules of engagement and a few of disengagement. Okay, here we go. Listen up and see where you stand in all of these communication issues. First, stay in the moment. Don't bring up the past, even if you feel it validates your argument. In all actuality, it takes away from the argument you're trying to solve by dragging both of you back into a whole slew of other circumstances. Stick with the present. Now, I do get that sometimes this fight has been the final straw in similar behavior you've engaged in prior with this person. But if you can stick with the present, you'll save yourself and the other person from old fights. And truthfully, if it's another fight of the same issue, then there's some level of self-awareness for yourself to admit that you never cleared it up or dealt with it in a healthy way in the past, either with them or with yourself. Next, name calling is out. Swearing at the other person is out. Remember that the first concept of an argument is that you respect the other person. If you don't, I offer you the question as to why you're even bothering to engage with this person in the first place. And on the other side, if you want to be respected by anyone, calling them names will not make that happen. Obviously, the minute you do either of those, you're putting your partner on the defensive. It's an immediate message that you have no intention to hear them. Okay. Here's what seems to be an obvious one, but so many couples end up here. Don't enter into an argument if either of you have been drinking or smoking weed or any other recreational drug, because that is a recipe for total disaster. Many of you know that's also when so many fights happen. So what the hell do you do? If you're on the other side of a fight with a drinker, walk away. Believe me, there's absolutely no chance of having a sane conversation at that time. Get out of the space before the fight even starts if you can. But that means you have to check your own ego, your hurts, your anger, and keep quiet. It's not giving in. It's actually taking the lead in the fight and controlling the possibility of it escalating. You can and you should talk about it when everyone's sober. I don't want you to ignore the issues, but I also don't want you to waste your energy to try and talk with someone who doesn't have the wherewithal or tools to hear you at that time. My best rule of disengagement. I think one of the best tools I can give my clients is space. Go to your corners. One of the biggest challenges is that often in a fight, one person wants to get to the bottom of it, resolve it, and get it over with right now. And they may be with a partner or a friend that needs time to process their thoughts in order to really share their feelings. So I tell people, go to your corners. But, and I say but, if you're the one that needs to think, become self-aware, then tell your sparring partner that you're doing so and will come back to finish the conversation. It's when someone walks away and doesn't engage at all that the other person will keep coming at you in order to be heard. You can say something like, I hear that you're mad or pissed or angry or hurt. I need some time to think about what you just said. I'm going in the other room and I promise I'll come back out within the hour and we can talk. Now, if you're the other person, do not follow them, nag them, demand they continue the argument at that moment, and do not stew while they are gone. Breathe. Know that they're thinking this argument through, and this can give you a chance to do the same. See if you can look at yourself and your part of the fight, hurt, or misunderstanding. Arguments, fights, and misunderstanding are some of the best opportunities for self-awareness. Fighting fair means hearing the other person, sharing your hurts, feelings, and thoughts in a healthy, non-aggressive way, and being able to see and acknowledge the feelings of the other person. With respect for the other person, and most importantly, with respect to yourself, you can navigate the most challenging disagreements. And then, most importantly, I offer you after any fight you have with anyone that you take the time to look at yourself and see your piece of the conflict. When we let down our defense mechanisms long enough to practice this fine art of arguing, then we tend to stay in the moment, not bringing up the past. We keep our anger under control and focus more clearly on what's being discussed. The art of listening is not giving in. Listening is the ability to keep your ego in check and fight fair. In the end, the scars from the fight are much less, the healing quicker, and the answers more of a reflection of what's right for the health of all the parties involved. So today I'm going to leave you with a quote by the brilliant Confucius. He who conquers himself is the mightiest warrior. On that note, please be good to yourself, eat wonderful, nourishing foods, drink lots of water, and surround yourself with kind, loving beings. Thank you for letting me into your life this week, and I look forward to popping back in again next week. Thank you for joining me today on the Journey to Awareness podcast. My hope is that you leave this podcast inspired, fired up, and ready to take that next step on the magical journey of self-awareness. And then you come back and join us again. Oh, and if you can do me a quick favor and please leave me a 5-star review over on iTunes. I gain so much from reading the reviews and getting feedback from my listeners. Thanks again for spending your time with me today. Be sure to visit me on my Facebook page, Working on Me, and on my website, workingonme.com, for past episodes and insight into the fabulous journey to you.